What has your general reaction been since Governor Walker proposed the budget repair bill and the 2011-13 budget?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been pretty, it was pretty shocking when he first introduced this thing. I mean, we thought it was a rumor, you know, because there's a lot of rumors that always float around the Capitol about things that are coming down, things that are happening. And so when we first heard about it, it was just a rumor that came out of Walker meeting with the Republicans. And what's funny is we were almost laughing about it. Some people were, because we said, well, there's no way. You know, people are saying he's going to get rid of collective bargaining completely, and that's just, he never even talked about that. So it's obvious he's not going to do that. People are just blowing it out of proportion and saying, oh, he's going to call in the National Guard if people strike, you know, to take over their positions. And we're like, no, people are just, it's obviously hyperbole. There's no way that that's happening. So then when he actually did announce that, it was jaw-dropping. It was staggering that he would try and do this, you know. So he's, you know, we were trying to figure out, okay, where the heck did this come from? And looking back on it, you know, there was a lot of corporate ads that ran before anyone had even seen the bill. So it was pretty obvious that this wasn't Walker's idea. This was something from corporate front group, and Walker was just another puppet governor as they were pushing these things across the country. So at that point we were thinking, okay, the legislature will step up. Those Senate Republicans are not going to do it. There was nobody stood behind him at his press conference. So we thought we had an opening there. And it wasn't until the Joint Finance Committee rubber stamped it, you know, on a party line vote and said, yep, we're going to do this, that we decided that, okay, there was no recourse other than to do what we did, prevent a quorum and do the Wisconsin filibuster, which is you have to leave the state. All 14 of us decided that that was it. At the moment I heard about it, I was in a public hearing, listening to people. It was almost entering its 24th hour that the Democrats had grabbed the gavel from the Republicans because Republicans had tried to shut it down. And you could hear story after story, heart-wrenching stories of people who would be affected by these changes, you know. Teachers' assistants, people who were on scholarship and relied on the health insurance coverage from the state that was going to be stripped away under this bill. And they had this fear and sadness in their eyes where they didn't know what they were going to do. You know, story after story after story after story. And it felt helpless. It felt like there was nothing that we could do. So now fast forward to what happened, you know, what we did is we stepped away, and it gave all those people the opportunity to be heard, for those stories to be heard. So otherwise the media was moving too fast. They were saying, oh, there's a bill, some people are on this side, other people are on the other. What we did was, by stepping away, we gave those people a voice. We let them be heard by the public because the Republicans refused to listen to them. And they stepped out, you know, like never before in our state's history, and they made sure that they were heard, and they made sure that everyone in the state knew exactly what Governor Walker and these Republicans were trying to do. So that was kind of the decisions leading up to it.
Great. And then the showing of people on Saturday is being said to be the most historic, largest rally that's ever happened in the state. Yeah. What was your reaction to the energy on Saturday? It
was humbling to be there, you know, because I've seen it all on Twitter and Facebook, you know, and trying to keep up with what's been happening and seeing pictures, seeing people's posts and posters, but actually being there, it was like, this is, you know, the whole state is just active right now, and that was like the heart of it, you know, and you could feel the pulse of the people, that many people there, you know, excited, so excited about what they could do with democracy and how they were taking it for themselves and how they were going to make sure that this was going to be a movement in their own image of how they wanted to do it. And what I think the best way to describe it with that many people there was it was like getting, you know, having them receive us back, you know, as we came to thank them for what they had done. It was like getting a hug from 100,000 people at once, you know, because it was just huge, this huge volume of people. It was truly humbling.
Great. And then also, being from Milwaukee, do you think it's fair to say that Scott Walker's attack on working families and labor rights really began when he was county executive in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think he, you know, yeah, absolutely. I think he ended up pushing these ideas as being, you know, legislative fixes. He's always been kind of a politician who sees the world in one dimension. Just tax cuts, just cut taxes, and everything else will work itself out. It doesn't matter what you're cutting as long as you're cutting taxes. That's it. And so the best way to use this as an analogy is if, like, you went to go buy a car and you just kept on saying, I want less, I want it for less, I want it for less. Well, you're going to get less and less from the car. You know, pretty soon you're not going to have safety, you're not going to have seat belts, you're not going to have doors or wheels, but he keeps on going back, less, less, less. So he would do that at the county. The only difference of what he's doing now and what he did then was the board, the county board, which I was on, would step back and say, no, Scott, you're not going to cut 45 tons of food to our poorest community. You're not going to cut pool access for our seniors who use it to exercise. You're not going to put parking meters on the lake. You're not going to cut funds to our mental health complexes. And the list goes on. And he'd do this, not cut funds to the AIDS Resource Center. And the list goes on. And so we'd go back and we'd fix it, almost enabling him, you know, so then he would go back and keep on cutting. Now that he's at the state, he still has these crazy ideas of saying, oh, this is modest, that we're going to make every person in the state who works for the state all of a sudden have no health insurance, have less of a pension, and take a huge pay cut, the equivalent of about 18%, everybody. And then he's going to call that modest. And no one's fixing it at this point. All he has is rubber stamp Republicans saying, you know, our governor said to do this, so we have to do it. We're at the board, we'd say, okay, that's a little extreme. We're going to tone it back a little bit, and we're going to come up with something in between. So he's always had these right-wing ideas and appealing to the talk radio more than anybody else in our community. You know, the difference now is he's got the legislature that's just rubber stamping everything for him.
And is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that Walker, the Governor Walker, has divided our state so much. You know, he came in, and I think a lot of people said, well, we want something different from Governor Doyle. We want somebody who's going to try different things. But they didn't want somebody who's going to be so divisive, to attack the middle class, to try and divide us and pit union workers against other middle-class workers. So I think it's unfortunate that he's used fear and these false choices to try and divide a people in our state. But I also think it's been remarkable how much he's brought us together against him. You know, these people that never saw the difference between Democrats and Republicans now see, look, this guy's stripping away the foundation of what created the middle class, unions, and he's attacking education, and now he's attacking public safety and attacking every system in our state. So everyone has grown to be, you know, united against him. I just think it's unfortunate that he's tried to divide us and use fear as a political tactic.